Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 Shruti Sharma.
Hello and welcome to ForumIAS. Today is 25th September 2023. This is Indumati coming to you with the 5 more important articles of the day from today's newspaper. Without much further ado, let us go to the first article. The first article is about multiple entry exit option that was put forth in the National Education Policy 2020 that was reviewed by a house panel, and they have analyzed this policy. Before getting into the analysis part of this policy, we have to first understand what is mean. So the National Education Policy promises multiple entry, multiple exit for students. Why this policy is offering MEME scheme for students? It is to offer greater flexibility. How this greater flexibility is afforded? So, if a person enters a degree program and they exit after 1 year, they will be provided with a certificate. If they are exiting after 2 years, they will be awarded a diploma. And if they are exiting after 3 years, they will be awarded a degree. And this option can be availed in the graduate level, master's level and doctoral level. So basically, the rigid boundaries with respect to graduation, masters, etc. are being removed, and it creates an opportunity for lifelong learning. So if we are providing such a flexibility to students, a student may enter into college, complete 1 year, and then go forward, work for some years, and they can re-enter college and complete their degree program. So this paves way for lifelong learning. How is this facilitated? There will be an academic bank of credit. We are all aware of credit system in college. So in the first semester, there will be number of paper 1, 2, 3, etc. Each of these paper will have some credits. Paper 1 say has 3 credits, paper 2 has 2 credits, paper 3 has 3 credits. So like this, the credits will be stored. If a person is exiting after completing the first semester, all these credits will be stored. And when they re-enter, they can start from right where they left. So this gives greater flexibility. You need not start the degree program from the beginning. So that is the logic behind the MEME policy. Now what does the house panel say about this? What is a house panel? House panel is a parliamentary standing committee. They have analyzed this and they have come up with possible challenges in implementing this. The first challenge is the high population of India. So every year the intake in higher education is very high. Also, if we offer the option of multiple entry and exit, an institution will not have an idea of how many students would exit, how many would join midway. So without having any guess of this data, it is difficult to maintain pupil-teacher ratio. So what happens is, initially, for example, if there were one teacher for every 20 students, say for example 3 students left and 6 students entered, now the total number of students will become 23. Earlier there was one teacher for 20 students, now there is only one teacher for 23 students. So if we don't have a correct view of how many students would exit, how many students would enter, what will this do is it disturbs the pupil-teacher ratio. Also, in India, we have uneven geographical distribution of higher education institutions. That is, there are certain states in India which have more number of higher education institutions. Also in India, the higher education institutions are more in number in urban areas compared to rural areas. So these are all some of the practical difficulties which would crop up if we have to implement the meme scheme. Now, what are all the pros of this policy? So this meme policy, it would offer greater flexibility and choice. So we already discussed about this. Giving another example, say for example, a student enters engineering course and they find out that engineering is not their cup of tea. They can exit after one semester and continue with another course while still maintaining the credits that they had earned while they pursued 1 year or one semester of engineering. So the time is not getting wasted. This person need not start with another degree altogether afresh. So this offers a greater flexibility and choice. So the credit accumulation and transfer system, which we already discussed, wherein the credits will be stored and the student will be able to start right where they left. It will also offer for smooth transition between different levels of education. So, we have analyzed the pros and cons of this system. What would be a possible way forward? There should be comprehensive guidelines and there should be a well-defined framework so that the academic institutions can take up this policy and implement them successfully. Western countries already have this model. We can study that model and come up with guidelines so that it is easier to practically implement this new scheme. That's it for the first article. Coming to the second article, it is about the simultaneous poll system. So, there has been developments about bringing in simultaneous polls, and a committee headed by former President Shri Ramnath Kovind has been constituted. In that context, this article discusses about the merits and demerits of simultaneous polls, and it proposes a way forward, that is the presidential system. How does it sit well with the Indian form of government? We will see in this discussion. First of all, the one nation, one poll is the idea that is giving the context to the article. So, in order to conduct this process, in order to kickstart this process, if we have to conduct the polls for all the states as well as the Lok Sabha at a single time, we have to curtail the term of assemblies in several states whose terms have not ended, so that the Lok Sabha polls and the state assembly elections can be conducted simultaneously. But what are the challenges in this process? So basically, if we have to have election once in every 5 years only, so whatever happens, there will be only election once in 5 years. So what happens if a particular government, whether in the state or the central level, falls because a no confidence motion has been passed? What will happen in that case is the question mark. Okay, so the survival of the government, it depends on it enjoying the confidence of the majority of the house. If they don't enjoy the confidence of majority of the house, they will not be able to pass a bill also. If they are not even able to pass a bill and make it a law, then how will the government carry on? So that is the biggest question here. So if a government fails midterm, whether at the state level or at the central level, there will be midterm election. If we don't want a midterm election and the elections will be strictly conducted once in every 5 years only, then what will happen? Either a particular state where the government has fallen, they will either continue with a chief minister or prime minister who has lost the confidence. So this is a minority government. They don't enjoy the majority of the house. or the president's rule will be imposed on that state, or if it is at the central level, there will be president's rule. But this is undemocratic, because if we are allowing a minority government to continue without enjoying the confidence of the majority of the house, what does it mean? This particular minority government doesn't enjoy the will of the people. If there is a presidential form of government, again in our system in India, we don't elect the president directly, right? So again what happens? This particular government is continuing. The president's rule, if it is continuing, means the government is carried out by an entity who doesn't enjoy the will of the people, right? President at the end of the day is not elected by the people, so he doesn't represent the will of the people. If we are allowing a minority government to continue, again they don't represent the will of the people. So this is also undemocratic. The biggest question here is, what will happen if the government falls midway? What can be a possible option? So that is the biggest question with respect to conducting simultaneous election. So now that we have discussed what will happen if a government falls midway, the article is suggesting a way forward. What is this way forward? There can be a directly elected president or governor who does not need to enjoy the confidence of the majority of the house, like in the case of US. In the US, the president is directly elected, or in the case of the provinces or states in the US, the governor is directly elected. Of course, there is a lower house and an upper house in the US. But the president, who is directly elected by the people, he need not command majority in the lower house. He need not have that. The lower house and upper house are meant for passing a law. That's all. The president has nothing to do with respect to the majority in either of the house. That kind of system we can do. So what will happen? The president will be elected. And even if the house falls midway, the president will still be continuing. The president will have a secretaries of state. Like in the US, he will form a ministry like thing, and it is called as, the individual ministers are called as secretaries. And these secretaries, they can be dismissed or appointed by the president, and they will carry on the government. There is a secretary of state for defense, there is a secretary for education, right? So similarly, like how we have a minister for education, a defense minister, they are picked from the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. Instead, if we have a presidential form of government, the president can pick anybody as a secretary of defense, anybody as a secretary of education. They need not be the member of the lower house. They need not be the member of the upper house. This way, even if the majority in the house fails, the president will still continue. There will still be a government which commands the majority, which commands the will of the people. So that is one way forward. Otherwise, the Law Commission, it has explored the possibility of simultaneous election. And one of the suggestions of the Law Commission was that if there is a no confidence motion must be accompanied with a confidence motion in an alternative government. If a no confidence motion is passed against the sitting government, then there should also be a confidence motion saying that this will be the alternate government. But again, there is problem with this kind of proposal, this kind of recommendation given by one of the Law Commission report. What is the problem? What if there is no alternative government? There is no conceivable alternative government. Then what will happen? Right? Again, what will happen? There is no conceivable alternative government. And even if an alternative government comes, they will not be able to command the majority of the house. If they are not able to command majority of the house, they will not even be able to pass a legislation or even money bill or finance bill. then again it will be difficult to conduct the government. So this option of accompanying a no confidence motion with a confidence motion also doesn't work, right? So the author of this article says that the only possible way forward is to have a presidential form of government. So for that there needs to be some amendments. So there should be amendment to the constitution related to provisions within the constitution regarding the powers of the president, of the governor, of the council of ministers. What will be the line of succession? What is line of succession? In the US, if the sitting president dies, the vice president will continue as a president. If the vice president also is not there, then the speaker of the house will become the president. So that is called as the line of succession. Instead of conducting a fresh set of elections, there will be another person who will continue for the rest of the term. So all these things, all these amendments have to be made if we are to go for a presidential form of government in order to enable simultaneous election. But parliamentary democracy is a part of the basic structure of constitution. We all know what is basic structure. It came about because of the Keshwanand Bharati case. We have studied about that in static polity. So if there is a basic structure of constitution, even if there is a constitutional amendment, the basic structure cannot be violated. But however, the author of this article is saying that democracy is a basic structure. And if there is presidential democracy also, it is a democracy still. So we need not consider the parliamentary democracy. Parliamentary democracy is not the only form of government. That need not be a basic structure. Democracy can be basic structure and it can function in parliamentary style or presidential style. That is the argument put forth by the author of this article. Also, there is a criticism to presidential system. They are saying that it is antithetical to a federal country. In case of parliamentary democracy, we have ministers picked from the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. And these ministers, before becoming ministers, they should be first MPs. And they will be either representing a constituency in case of Lok Sabha, or they will either be representing a state in case of Rajya Sabha. So either way, the state's voice is heard. But some people criticize presidential form, saying that there is a president who is directly elected and he will bring up any person who is expert in that field as the secretary of that particular domain, secretary of education, secretary of agriculture, like that. So this is against the federal structure, a federal country wherein in a country like India where the states are equally important like the center. It doesn't go well with such a kind of a country. That is one criticism. However, we have the best example, that is United States. They are more federal than India. There the presidential system has worked. It is working. So why can't it work in India? That is also another argument that is put forth by the author of this article. So in this, he has discussed what are all the problems with conducting simultaneous election and what could be a way forward, and he has given some arguments and what can be done to implement it practically. Okay, so that is it for the second article. The next article is about delimitation. Delimitation. Why this delimitation is being discussed? It is because of the 128 Constitutional Amendment Bill. So 128 Constitutional Amendment Bill is for 33% women's reservation. So this particular bill, it sheds light on delimitation. So if we have to reserve 33% of the seats for women, then which are all the seats that will be reserved for women? And what is the territorial extent of that constituency? This is being done by the exercise of delimitation. What is delimitation? Carving electoral constituencies and fixing their boundaries. That is referred to as delimitation. So let us take a state, for example, Andhra Pradesh. How many constituencies are in that state? And what is the border? What is the territorial extent of that constituency? Determining this is delimitation. Presently, what is the status of delimitation? From the 1970s, there has been no change in the number of Lok Sabha seats. How many MPs each state has? There has not been a change in this number right from 1970s. Why? Because of the 42nd Amendment Act of the Constitution. So this 42nd Amendment Act froze the delimitation of Lok Sabha constituencies as per the census of 1971. So based on the census of 1971, it will be determined how many MPs are coming from each state, and within that state, what is the territorial extent of the constituency of each MP? That will be determined according to the data from the 1971 census. And 42nd Amendment Act said that till the year 2001, this will continue. Whatever number of MPs which were determined by virtue of the 1971 census will continue till 2001. Again, in 2001, what happened? They extended this till 2026. So, whatever was the number of MPs in 1970s, which was determined according to the 1971 census, it will be the same till 2026. But in 2002, the boundaries of constituencies were redrawn. Say for example, there are 39 MPs in Tamil Nadu. This number did not change. But in 2002, what they did was, what is the territorial extent of each of these constituencies? That changed as per the census data of 2001. So this number of MPs is determined by the 1971 census. Territorial extent of each constituency is determined by the 2001 census. Okay, this is clear. Now, when will this change? It will change after 2026. So, is there a possibility of delimitation as of now? We will discuss that. Why there was a freeze? Why there was a freeze in number of MPs? Because there were some states which were successful in population control. As a result of their success in population control, their population fell. If we have to determine the number of MPs for a state based on population, what will happen? The states which have controlled their population, they will have lesser number of MPs. So it will be like they are being punished for doing a good thing, that is population control. So in order to pacify the fears of these states, the number of MPs were frozen according to the 1971 census. So 1971 census figures are used even today to determine the number of MPs. But today the population has changed drastically. It has changed vastly. Again, it goes against the constitution if we are using 1971 census even today. Why? Because the constitution says representation should be in proportion to population. But now the representation is not in proportion to population. It is not in proportion to today's population. It is in proportion to 1971 population. So it is against the constitution. That is why some northern states are asking for delimitation. For our level of population, we don't have enough number of representatives. That is what these states are saying. The population of North has increased at a faster pace as compared with South. We know that, right? So, MPs in states in North India represent more voters than MPs in the South. Let us take the example of Tamil Nadu, which has a population of 7 crore. They have 39 MPs. Let us take the example of UP, which almost has a population of more than 25 crores. They have approximately 57 MPs. This is not accurate figure. I am just giving an example. So, 57 MPs are representing a 25 crore population, but 39 MPs are representing a 7 crore population. You see? So, what happens here is, one MP is representing more population in UP compared to one MP representing less population with respect to Tamil Nadu. So that is why there is a need for delimitation. However, southern states will lose some of their seats in the parliament because the TFR, the total fertility rate, or TFR you might have studied in the basic GS portion. TFR is how many kids a woman can have in her reproductive state of life. That is TFR. That is not very important for this article. However, understand simply that the population of South India is far lesser than the population of North India. If we have to carry out delimitation exercise today, the number of MPs from South India will drastically reduce. So, the faith of South India in the process will also reduce. On one hand, in North India, MPs are representing larger population. They are not having commensurate number of MPs for their high population. But if we carry out the delimitation, southern states will lose significant number of their MPs. So, this is the conundrum that is facing us today. So, what will happen in the near future? So, in the freezing of the seats in 1971, it was because of the efforts in population control. That concern holds good even today. Even today, the population of South India is far less than the population of North India. So, another concern is where should the population figures come from? Because actually, the census should have taken place in 2021. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, it did not happen. But next year in 2024, we will have the Lok Sabha election. So, next year also this census will not be possible. So, the Home Minister said that once this Lok Sabha election is complete, then only the census will take place. So, which census should we use to do the delimitation again? That is also a big question mark. And again, whatever the number of MPs we commit for North India as well as South India, it should not be merely based on population. If we do that, then what will happen? There will be distrust on the part of the states in the South. That should not happen. So, there should be some other method along with population that we have to devise so that there is a equitable representation. So, this delimitation is going to be a question for another 3-4 years in our country. It will be a burning topic. So, pay good attention to any sort of news which comes in this topic. The next article is about vaccine wheel in UP. So, this is to track newborn immunization. So, in order to offer better compliance in vaccination in the state of UP, in coordination with the Clinton Foundation under the Clinton Health Access Initiative, the immunization wheel was given to the ASHA workers in the state. So, the ASHA workers will distribute that, will create a vaccination wheel for each child, and their immunization will be carried out in a regular basis. This is called as a Tikakaran Chakra in Hindi, and I'll show you the picture of a vaccination wheel. So basically, the birthday of a child should be fixed. Once that is fixed, from the vaccination wheel, you will automatically know what are all the vaccinations to be taken on which date without any manual calculation. Because of this, there is a less probability of both the ASHA worker as well as the parents of the child missing any vaccination deadline. Because this vaccination wheel, it will itself give you the dates: 1 month mark, 2 month mark, 3 month mark, 4 month mark. So once you set this birth date of the child, you will automatically get the other vaccination dates. So this will enable a seamless implementation of vaccination, and it will also help us achieve the vaccination target. Next article is about the ESIC. ESIC stands for Employee State Insurance Corporation. So this is the expansion of ESIC. Before understanding this article, we have to understand what is this ESIC, what is this Employee State Insurance Scheme. ESIC is the corporation. They administer employee state insurance scheme. What is this? We will see. So here we have a snippet from the ESIC website. This ESIC comes under the Ministry of Labour and Employment. Under the ESI scheme, there are some social security benefits. There is medical benefit, sickness benefit, maternity benefit, disablement benefit, and dependent benefit. And during the COVID situation, during the pandemic, the COVID benefit scheme, COVID relief scheme was also provided through ESIC. So, what happens in this scheme is that it is a self-financing health insurance scheme. To this scheme, the employees as well as the employers contribute a fixed percentage of wage. Okay, so there are a number of employers, they all contribute a fixed percentage. That what percentage? That is not important for UPSC civil service exam. So this under this ESIC, there will be this money, this corpus, which comes through the contribution of employees and employer. The ESIC will invest this in the market, and when this money is invested in the market, it will give certain returns. Using that returns, the ESIC will provide insurance benefit for these employees. Okay, and ESIC also runs for hospitals called the ESIC hospital. So in order to provide medical benefit, it is provided through the ESIC hospital, and any treatment that is undergone in the ESIC hospital is free of cost. And where does the money come from? It comes from this corpus, to which the employees and the employers contribute. That is the basics of ESIC. So what does this article say? The Parliamentary Standing Committee on Labour, it has asked the Union government to strictly monitor the ESIC. Why? Because ESIC is an institution which provides social security benefits. The ESIC should be monitored properly so that this institution provides social security benefits adequately. This panel also reviewed the benefits under the Employee State Insurance Scheme, which I already showed, the functioning of ESI hospitals. I also explained what are these ESI hospitals, management of the corpus. I also explained what is the corpus. All these things were reviewed by the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Labour. Also, this particular committee called for the review of the wage limit for coverage under ESIS. ESIS is the Employee State Insurance Scheme. Currently, if someone is having a wage of rupees 176 per day, they are exempted from paying contribution. If they are having wages less than 176 per day, they will be given ESIC, they will be given benefits from the Employee State Insurance Scheme, but the contribution will predominantly come from the employer and the government. Okay. Above 176, they will contribute a very small percentage of their earnings towards the ESIC. In that case, both the employee as well as the employer will contribute. So this limit is not important for UPSC exam. Just know that there is a limit in this, and beyond a certain limit, both the employee and employer will contribute, but below a certain limit, the employee is having so less salary that he need not contribute. Okay, so this limit, this particular committee on labor, they have called for review of this limit because last time the limit was set, it was in 2019. So many things have changed from them, and the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Labour wants to revise this particular limit. So recently, a code on social security, there were 4 codes on wages. There were 4 code on wages, code on occupational health, code on social security. These 4 labor codes were implemented by the union government, and among these 4 labor codes, one of the labor code is the code on social security. And ESIC is an important organization which will play a very crucial role in implementing the code on social security, because it is an organization which provides social security through the Employee State Insurance Scheme. That is why the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Labour has asked the union government to monitor ESIC and ensure that ESIC is providing benefits to maximum number of people possible. Nobody should be left behind. That is the motto here. Okay, so that's it for today's discussion. We will see some PYQ. In the context of polity, which one of the following would you accept as the most appropriate definition of liberty? Protection against the tyranny of political rulers. That is one aspect of liberty, but it is not a complete definition of liberty. Absence of restraint. If there is no restraint, then the liberty will affect the liberty of another person. So this option is also wrong. Opportunity to do whatever one likes, this is also wrong. That will lead to affecting of other person's freedom, other person's liberty. So the answer is D, opportunity to develop oneself fully. That is the true definition of liberty. Next question. Which of the following adopted a law on data protection and privacy for its citizens known as General Data Protection Regulation GDPR in April 2016 and started implementation of it from 25th May 2018. So this is a factual question. The answer is EU, the European Union. This GDPR is even now important because India's Digital Data Protection Act is also modeled on this GDPR. Okay, so that's the end of today's discussion. Follow us on all these social media platforms. Thank you and all the best.